Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh. Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
We think about the kingdom, most brothers think of like the small, minute terms. But the vastness of the kingdom, the greatness of the kingdom, dealing with the knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and the information alone that we're going to receive when we get to the kingdom. That's on a whole nother level. Never mind the riches and the lands and the women and the children, and be in your chariot, sipping some yayan, on your chalice, your gold chalice with all them rubies and emeralds and sapphires and the different precious stones, going to places.
But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. But God hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit.
The brother with the most vivid imagination out there can't imagine what the kingdom of heaven has in store, what it's going to be like. What we're basing the kingdom of heaven as far as riches and having a good time and things of that nature is just based off of our experiences in this world and what we think having a good time is, living the life is.
But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. But God hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit.
No one, no matter how vivid a brother's imagination is, there's nothing in comparison to what's coming. You can't even imagine that. You can't even picture or give an explanation that even comes close to the majesty that's coming. We are destined for greatness in the new righteous kingdom.
But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. But God hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit.
Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Kakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds. In the name of Yahweh Bahashem Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners who may have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bahashem Shai. All right, what I want to get into today, is continue on in the book of 2 Samuel, and we made it to chapter 16. All right, we're going to do chapter 16 and 17 together, and this is going into the civil war in Israel. Absalom, had did a coup, on his father, so now, he's the acting king in Israel, and King David, is on the run. Okay, he's back in the wilderness. Okay, back the way he started. Okay, and we're gonna follow, his journey back, to his throne. Okay, and so what we want to do here is just go straight to 2 Samuel 16 and get into it. And this is pretty much, right here. Yeah, this is pretty much a very, intriguing part, okay, of, the times of King David, dealing with this situation. He's been king, he's been very successful as a conqueror, he's wealthy, okay, but just to drop, have to drop everything at, the drop of a dime, okay, and flee away. And he was willing to do that, because, he always had trust in Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. He didn't trust, in his riches. Okay, matter of fact, let's get a few precepts, to start it off, because of how King David was moving, because that's the mindset we're going to have to be in. Okay, let's go here to the book of Jeremiah. Okay. Chapter 9 and verse 23. It's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 9 and 23. Said, Thus said the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Shai, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom. All right. In which King David was a wise man. Okay. But that wasn't his glory. Neither let the mighty man glory in his might. King David was a mighty man, but that wasn't his glory. Let not the rich man glory in his riches. He was a very wealthy man. All right. But that wasn't his glory. Okay. It says, But let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me. And this is what King David glorified in, knowing Yahweh Bashim Shai, that closeness, that intimacy that he had with, all right, the Heavenly Father. That was his glory, man. You see, and those things can't be scripted unless the Lord scripts them from us. That's why King David prayed that the Lord take not his Holy Spirit from him. You know? So those external material things didn't make King David who he was. Okay? It was his relationship with Yahweh Bashim Shai. That's what he gloried in, man. You know, and we're coming into times to where that's all we're going to have. Okay? As we go through the changes of following Yahweh Shai, the Lamb, whithersoever he goeth, man. Okay? It says that I am the Lord, all right, Yahweh Bashim Shai, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, said the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Shai. Okay, so King David, you know, his glory, all right, didn't come from the riches and the things that he was given, you know, the things that the Lord blessed him with. Okay, but what he cherished the most was, you know, his relationship with Yahweh Bashim Shai. You know, and that's what's going to get us through in these times is a strong relationship in the Lord. All right. Matter of fact, let me see, let me find it. I think that's in Luke. Yep. This is I'm gonna read this in the NLT. All right, this is the book of Luke, chapter 12. Yeah, 18. It says, well, I'm starting at 16. It said, Then he told them a story. A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He said to himself, What should I do? I don't have room for all my crops. Then he said, I know I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I have enough room to store all my wheat and other goods. And I'll sit back and say to myself, my friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. Okay? And it says, But the Most High said unto him, Ye fool, you will die this very night. Then who will get everything you work for? Okay, so he gloried, you know, in his substance, you know, and he considered himself, you know, to be a made man. So he was just going to build bigger barns and just chill with the substance that he had. Okay, it says, you know, with the Most High, you know, call him a fool. All right, you will die this very night. Then who will get everything you work for? Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with the Most High. Okay, because earthly wealth amounts to nothing if we don't have a rich relationship with the Most High. Because in the time of judgment, that's the only thing that's going to matter. See, wealth is going to be obsolete in the times to come. Being a billionaire right now, while this place is up and functioning, a millionaire, billionaire, okay, these things have their perks. Okay, but when the Lord judgment, all right, begins to settle in the earth, those things are going to amount to nothing. And then it's going to be all about who had a rich relationship with the Most High. All right, and King David had a rich relationship with the Lord. You know, so that's why it was so easy for him to leave those things, to leave those comforts, man. You know, and go into the wilderness and regroup. Okay, you go here. Let's get this real quick. In the time of let's see. It's in the book of second Esdras. All right, chapter 14. All right, second Esdras 14, and I started 16. So like, read it, verse 40. And this is speaking of the times to come. All right. Now I start here at 37. It says, behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack. And we're seeing, King David, his house be plagued, and what we're about to see in the earth is the Lord from the plague of the earth. Okay. With all these different events. We read this account, these accounts dealing with King David, just these events happening back to back. His eldest son, went into his sister, which is, King David's daughter. Okay. He defiled his own sister. All right. And then he, was put to death by Absalom. Absalom has begun to rebel and has incited a civil war. So it's just all these things back to back. There's no slack. You see? And that's how it's going to be when the Lord plays the earth, man. It's not going to be any slack. It's going to be back to back. You see, we're just in the beginning of sorrows, man. Okay, the beginning of birth pain, and they intensify, okay, and get worse. Let's read here, verse 38. It says, as when a woman with child in the 9th month bringing forth a son, with 2 or 3 hours of her birth, great pain compares her womb, which pains when the child cometh forth, they slack not a moment. Okay, they slack not a moment. You see? So we're coming into the times where we're going to see things that happening back to back to back, and there's going to be major events. Okay, people are not going to be fully recovered from the previous event, and something else is going to happen, man. Okay, it says, even so shall not the plagues be slack to come upon the earth, and the world shall mourn, and sorrow shall come upon it. All right, on every side. Okay, so this is what we're coming into, man. The Lord is about to put pressure in the earth, man. And right now, with this account with King David, he's putting pressure on King David, but he's keeping King David at the same time. He's still with him. And may the Lord be with us in these times, man. This is why we're here. This is why it's a daily grind to do the right thing, man. It's a daily battle, to stay in the right spirit, not to give into the ways of the old man. Okay, but constantly be renewed in Yahweh Bashim al Shah, man. And may the Lord be with us. Verse 40 says, "O my people, hear my word. Make you ready to the battle, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth." Okay, which King David, we're seeing him have to be a pilgrim in his own kingdom, on the move. Okay. So in these times, the Lord can have us uprooted. We can't have the spirit of Lot's wife, looking, what we built, looking what we established here in this world. We can't be inseparable, all right, from these things, man. We have to already, all right, have these things. We already have to be separated from these things in our mind, knowing that it's temporal, man. Okay. It says, he that selleth, let him be as he that fleeth away. And he that buyeth as one that will lose. He that occupy merchandise as he that have no profit by it. And he that buildeth as he that shall not dwell therein. He that soweth as if he should not reap. So also he that planteth a vineyard as he that shall not gather grapes. They, like jumping down, it says, they that marry as they shall get no children, and they that marry not as the widowers, and therefore they that labor in vain. Because we come to a time now where we're gonna have to forsake all. When they drop that sea hill, and you have a business, we can't run that business, if that's mandated. Okay, we're not gonna be able to pay bills and function in society, all right, as we used to when this thing is mandated. Okay, we're gonna have to. Hey, the chances are we can be uprooted. Okay, well, that's when the Lord is going to kick in, man. You see, that's when the Lord's favor is. That's when the stage is going to be set for the Lord's favor. Okay, so going back, let's get this. Let's get back in Second Samuel. All right, 16. Okay, it's a lot of moving parts. We read in these next few chapters. Okay, because you're seeing a lot of, you're gonna see a lot of betrayal, a lot of, you're gonna see loyalty. Okay, which that's gonna be shown in adversity. Betrayal and loyalty is gonna be shown in adversity, man. Okay, so adversity is a must. Okay, to show the real from it's gonna separate the real from the fake. All right, 2 Samuel 16:1. It says, when David had gone a little beyond the summit of the Mount of Olives, all right, when King David's like a pilgrim. It says Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, all right, Mephibosheth was waiting for him. He had 2 donkeys loaded with 200 loaves of bread, 100 clusters of raisins, 100 bunches of summer fruit, and a wine skin full of wine. So this also lets us know, okay, that that those lands, okay, that King David gave to Mephibosheth, all right, and he appointed Ziba and his family and his servants to work that land. It shows you that those lands were very productive. They was producing, for them to have all this substance, to give to King David and his men. It says, what are these for? The king asked Ziba. Ziba replied, the donkeys are for the king's people to ride on, and the bread and summer fruit are for the young men to eat. The wine is for those who become exhausted in the wilderness. And where is Mephibosheth, Saul's grandson? The king asked him. All right, so he's provided all these provisions, okay, for King David. All right, it says the king asked him, all right, he stayed in Jerusalem. Ziba replied, he said, today I will get back the kingdom of my grandfather Saul. So Ziba is like, look, Mephibosheth has taken this opportunity, to get the throne back. Okay, to reestablish, the house of Saul. This is what Ziba is reporting, which we're going to see, the truth about that matter. I had to read on a few chapters up to kind of get the full scoop of how it played out. I didn't want to speak, in the wrong. Okay, but we're going to see. But you're going to see just a lot of moving parts, man. King David at his low point. Everyone. All the snakes show their head, and the people that's truly loyal, they show themselves, man. Okay. Verse 4 says, in that case, the king told Ziba, I give you everything Mephibosheth owns. I bow before you. Ziba replied, may I always be pleasing to you, my lord, the king. As King David came to Bahurim, a man came out of the village cursing them. It was Shimei, son of Gerah, from the same clan as Saul's family. So you still have, men of the house of Saul, all right, that's a part of their family that's bitter, that was still bitter about, King David becoming the king. As the tribe, the kingship went from Benjamin, to Judah. Okay, and there was still, animosity. All right. He says he threw stones at the king and the king's officers and all the mighty warriors, all right, who surrounded him. Get out of here, you murderer, you scoundrel, he shouted at David. It says the Lord is paying you back for all the bloodshed in Saul's clan. You stole his throne, and now the Lord has given it to your son Absalom. At last you will taste some of your own medicine. You are a murderer. So this guy's going in. He's taking this opportunity. As King David, is on the run. Okay, pretty much as they say, kicking the dog while it's down. All right, he's taking full opportunity to do that. Okay, so just believe, hey, when it looks like we're down, all right, we're gonna. Hey, watch how Jake act. You know, when we're out here bad for your house shot, man. Watch how Jake react, man. Okay, all you know, they got a soft spot for niggas. You just watch how niggas act. You know, when Esau really pushed that propaganda, man. Okay, so this guy, you know, he takes this Benjaminite, you know, takes this opportunity, you know, to really slander and get at, you know, King David. Okay, and that's why I got this precept here. This is Sirach 12 and 8. It says a friend cannot be known in prosperity, you know, because it's easily, you know, for someone to play a part of a friend, okay, in prosperity. Okay. It says, and the enemy cannot be hidden in adversity. So adversity is going to expose both who was really down, who was really loyal, and who's been against you. Things that, you know, people been hiding, you know, all these you know, these contrary, you know, people that surround us, people that really are enemy, okay, but want the perks. Okay, well, when you in adversity, you don't have the perks anymore. So now they have no incentive, you know, to pretend, okay, to be down. Okay, when Job, all right, what happened with Job and his woman? Okay, when the perks was, you know, when the wine was pouring, okay, when the lamb chops was, you know, unlimited, okay, she was good. But when adversity came, all right, this Job 2, all right, and well, I started at 7. It says, so when Satan forth from the presence of the Lord and smote Job with sore bows from the soles of his feet unto his crown, and he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. Okay. Then said his wife unto him, dost thou yet still retain thine integrity? Curse the Most High and die. So here it is. This man has lost, you know, his wealth. You know, his health is diminishing. You know, he's obviously in pain. Okay. And what does she say? Because this is how she always felt. You know, she didn't have a reverence for Yahweh by Shema Shah. She was just enjoying, all right, the perks of Joe's wealth. You know, no integrity in the situation, man. All right. So then said his wife unto him, dost thou still retain thy integrity, curse the Most High and die? But he said unto her, thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What shall we receive of the good at the hand of the Most High? Shall we not receive evil? And all this did not Job sin with his lips. All right. So Job remained, he kept his integrity, and he understood that, you know, good and evil came from the Most High, you know, and he distributed, all right, and both how he seen fit. Okay. But his wife had this mindset of entitlement. Okay. She was partial, you know, only if the Lord is doing what she thought the Lord should be doing, then she was loyal. Okay. And it's going to be a lot of things exposed in adversity, man. Adversity is going to expose everything. You can't pretend in adversity, man. Adversity is going to put it all on the line. Okay. You see? So going back to here, back in 2 Samuel, all right, 16. Reading on. All right, it says that he cast stones at David and all the servants of King David, and all the people and all the mighty men were on his right hand and on his left. And thus said Shemiah, all right, when he cursed, come out, thou bloody man, thou son of Belial. You know, so he's just going hard. It said, the Lord Yahweh Bashim al Shah have returned upon thee all the blood of the house of Saul, in whose stead thou hast reigned, and the Lord has delivered the kingdom into the hand of Absalom thy son, and behold, thou art taken in thy mischief, because thou art a bloody man. Then said Abishai the son of Zeruiah unto the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over, I pray thee, and take off his head. And the king said, what have I to do with you, sons of Zeruiah? So let him curse, because the Lord hath said unto him, curse David. All right. Who shall then say, wherefore, all right, hast thou done so? So King David is like, look, the Lord is telling him to do this, because King David understands that all this is punishment for his actions. King David is being fully accountable for his actions, man. Going back to his sin. All right. And he could have ordered this man to have his head taken off, but he didn't. He dealt with the chastisement of the Lord, and Abishai, which is King David's nephew, him and Joab was brothers. That's why he said, what am I to do with you, you sons? All right. Zeruiah, because they were hot heads. All right. And Joab would be in the right spirit at times, as we're going to see. He had to, shake King David out of these, these emotional stupids he would go into sometimes. Joab. All right. And a lot of times, they'd be carnal, emotional, impulsive, and King David will have to reel them back in. Okay. But going into it says, then David said to Abishai and to all his servants, my own son is trying to kill me. Doesn't this relative of Saul have even more reason to do so? Leave him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has told him to do it. And perhaps the Lord will see that I'm being wrong and will bless me because of these curses today. You see, and King David fully, entrusted the Lord when it came to judgment, man, righteous judgment. And King David knew why this was happening. He had that spiritual awareness. All right, King David was very spiritually mature. This is the book of 2 Peter. All right, and this reminds us of Yahushua. Okay. This is 1 Peter 2:19. As the NLT saying, for the Most High is pleased with you when you do what you know is right and patiently endure unfair treatment. Okay? Because that's one thing we got to get our minds out of being fair. It's not going to be fair. What these devils are about to do, what the Lord is about to unleash these devils to do, is not going to be fair. Okay? And ultimately, it's going to be a test of our endurance, man. And judgment is going to be of the Lord. Okay? It says, all right, verse 20, of course, you get no credit for being patient if you are beaten for doing wrong. But if you suffer for doing good and endure it patiently, the Most High is pleased with you, man. And the Most High is pleased in our long suffering and doing the right thing. So the focus is always doing the right thing. Okay, not being impulsive, not trying to get our own victories and, make our own points. And you see, nah, man, the thing is, focus on keep doing the right thing, man, and let the Lord, all right, justify. Okay, let the Lord judge situations, man. It says, for the Most High called you to do good, even if it means suffering. Just as Yahushua suffered for you, he is your example you must follow in his steps. He never sinned nor ever deceived anyone. Okay, verse 23, he did not retaliate when he was insulted, nor threaten revenge when he suffered. He left his case in the hands of the Most High, who always judges fairly, man. Okay, and no one had a better, reason, okay, to lash out than Yahushua, but he kept his composure. Because Yahushua had a far better, report than King David, and he didn't lash out. When he was insulted, when he was mocked, crucified, tortured, he didn't insult. He left judgment in the hand of the Most High, who always judges fairly, man. And the Most High, there's certain things that only He can judge. There's things that He gives us, you know, autonomy to where we can judge particular situations and make particular calls. But then there's things that's above us, man, that we got to give to the Lord. We got to give it to the higher courts. Okay, going back to 2 Samuel 16. Okay, 2 Samuel 16 and 13. It says, so David and his men continued down the road, and Shimei kept pace with them on a nearby hillside, cursing as he went and throwing stones at David and tossing dust in the air. So he was just cutting up, following, David and his men, throwing stones, he's just cutting up. Okay. The king and all who were with him, all right, grew weary along the way. So they rested when they reached the Jordan River. Meanwhile, Absalom and all the army of Israel arrived at Jerusalem, accompanied by Ahithophel. When David's friend, all right, Hushai, all right, the archite arrived, he went immediately to see Absalom. Long live the king, he exclaimed. Remember, King David sent him back, to be a plant, within the courts, all right, of Absalom. Okay, and to counter, all right, Ahithophel, okay, which was King David's, father-in-law and his advisor. It says he went immediately to see Absalom. Long live the king, he exclaimed. Long live the king. In this way, it says, is this the way you treat your friend David? Absalom asked him, why aren't you with him? So Absalom, like, David's your man. You're not with, the king. Okay, you're not with David. You're not with your friend. So Hushai is going to start running game. It says, I'm here because I belong to the man who is chosen by the Lord and by all the men of Israel. Hushai replied. And see, he flattered, he stroked, Absalom's ego. All right. Absalom was a very vain man. Okay. So he disarmed him by what, man? Flattering him. Okay. And it says, and anyway, why shouldn't I serve you just as I was your father's advisor? Now I will be your advisor. Then Absalom turned to Ahithophel and asked him, what should I do next? Ahithophel told him, go and sleep with your father's concubines, for he has left them there, all right, to look after the palace. Then all Israel will know that you have insulted your father beyond hope of reconciliation, and they will throw their support to you. So he's telling him to go make this move, and it's a political move of him, committing adultery with his father's concubines. Okay, which remember, this was told to him in 2 Samuel, the 12th chapter. This is the Lord making good on the chastisement that he promised to King David. Okay. This is 2 Samuel 12:10 says, from this time on, your family will live by the sword because you have despised me by taking Uriah's wife to be your own. This is what the Lord says. Because of what you have done, I will cause your own household to rebel against you. And this is happening. I will give your wife to another man. And he didn't, you best believe King David didn't think it would be his son Absalom. Okay. And it was his concubines, but that's your lesser wife. Okay. It says to another man before your very eyes, and he will go to bed with them in public view. Okay. So this is what we're finna see. Okay. Playing out real time, showing you that the Most High is a man, is not a man that he doesn't lie. Okay. He's a power of his word, whether in blessing or, in wrath and cursing, man. Okay, so going back down, okay, it says, read 21 again. It says, Ahithophel told him, go and sleep with your father's concubines, for he has left them here to look after the palace. Then all Israel will know that you have insulted your father beyond hope of reconciliation, and they will throw their support to you. So they set up a tent on the palace roof where everyone could see it, and Absalom went in and had sex with his father's concubine. So they set up a tent on the palace roof. Ultimate disrespect, So he's just dealing with his father's concubines on the roof of the palace, man. You see, ain't no coming back from no. All right, it says Absalom followed Ahithophel's advice, just as David had done. For every word Ahithophel spoke seemed as wise as though it had come directly from the mouth of the Most High. All right, so Ahithophel is leading, Absalom to a point of no return. Okay, and he's got Absalom on the path, all right, of destruction, man. Okay, which King David prayed, that Ahithophel be a poor counselor for Absalom. Okay, so now you get to get to chapter 17. Let's see this guy. So now you get to chapter 17. Okay, so now, since Absalom asked about, what should he do next? Okay, so he's at the mercy of Ahithophel of what to do next. All right, remember Hushai was sent there to counter Ahithophel. So now they're finna get into, war council. Okay, what to do next militarily. 2 Samuel 17:1 said, now Ahithophel urged Absalom, let me choose 12,000 men to start after, all right, David tonight. I will catch up with him while he is weary and discouraged. He and his troops will panic and everyone will run away. And I will kill only the king. And I will bring all the people back to you as a bride returns to her husband. After all, it is only one man's life that you seek. Then you will be at peace with all the people. The plan seemed good to Absalom and to all the elders of Israel. Okay, so they like, look, we need to move on them immediately, before they're able to, reset themselves. Okay, but then Absalom said, bring in Hushai the Archite. Let's see what he thinks about this. When Hushai arrived, Absalom told him what Ahithophel had said. Then he asked, what is your opinion? Should we follow Ahithophel's advice? If not, what do you suggest? Okay. Well, Hushai replied to Absalom, it says this time Ahithophel has made a mistake. Okay, so he's going to counter the counsel given to Ahithophel. Okay, given by Ahithophel. And it says, your father and his men, they are mighty warriors. Right now, they are enraged as a mother bear who has been robbed of her cubs. And remember that your father is an experienced man of war. He wouldn't be spending the night among the troops. Okay, so he's giving him the rundown and reminding him, all right, look, these ain't no ordinary men, all right, that you finna go pursue. Okay, it says he has probably already hidden in some pit or cave, and when he comes out and attacks a few of your men fall, there will be panic among your troops, and the word will spread that Absalom's men are being slaughtered. Then even the bravest soldiers, though they have the heart of a lion, will be paralyzed with fear, for all Israel knows what a mighty warrior father is and how courageous his men are. I recommend that you mobilize the entire army of Israel, bringing them from as far away as Dan in the north and Beersheba in the south, that you will have an army as numerous as the sand of the seashore. And I advise that you personally lead the troops. Okay, so Hushai is giving this advice because he wants to buy King David and his men some time. And remember, everything that's being said, all right, this is going to get reported to King David. Okay, so um he's pretty much forming the battle strategy, okay, for um Absalom, and he's gonna have that message relayed to King David on how they're gonna move. Okay, so because when you mobilize an army, that takes time, for troops to get ready and move and travel. Okay, that takes time. So as uh, Hoshea is giving this advice to mobilize the entire army of Israel, it was all a ploy, all right, to buy King David and his men some more time to reset themselves, all right, and dig in out there in the wilderness, man. Okay, it says, when we find David, we'll fall on him like dew that falls on the ground. Then neither, okay, it said, then neither he nor any of his men will be left alive. And if David were to escape into some town, you will have all Israel there at your command. Then we can take ropes and drag the walls of the town into the nearest valley until every stone, all right, is torn down. Then Absalom and all the men of Israel said, Hoshea's advice is better than Ahithophel's, for the Lord had determined to defeat the counsel of Ahithophel, which really was the better plan, so that he could bring disaster on Absalom. Okay? So the Lord was intervening in that council and had the spirit on Hoshea, to say something that sounded better than Ahithophel to set up Absalom for complete failure, even to the point of him leading the troops himself, so it was the Lord at work, that was coming up with that strategy, man, for his purpose to go forth. Just as the elites, okay, they're being led, all right, to their own disaster, as they have counsel with these demons, tapped into Satan, and they're getting these ideas, because these ideas have been, prolific. Esau has had some prolific ideas and wickedness, man, and how he's been running the earth. Okay. But remember, the Most High controls those spirits that's controlling, all right, Esau, Edom, Satan and those demons. Okay. So Satan is getting counsel on how to move, okay, from the left hand side. Okay. But it's setting them up for failure in the end. Okay. And it says, all right, it says Hoshea, all right, told Zodek and Abiathar the priest what Ahithophel had said to Absalom and the elders of Israel, and what he himself had advised, instead. Quick, he told them, find David and urge him not to stay at the shallows of the Jordan River tonight. He must go across at once into the wilderness beyond, otherwise he will die, all right, and his entire army with him. Jonathan and Ahimaaz had been staying at En Rogal so as not to be seen entering, okay, and leaving the city. Arrangement had been made for a servant girl to bring them the message they were to take to King David. So these are the people that's really loyal and down for King David. From this servant girl to these priests, and their sons. Okay, it says, but a boy spotted them at En Rogal and told Absalom about it. So they quickly escaped to Bahrain, where a man hid them down inside a well in his courtyard. Okay, so you had someone spotted, and went and told Absalom about what was happening. The man's wife put a cloth, okay, so this family was down, okay, put a cloth over the top of the well and scattered grain on it to dry in the sun, okay, to dry it in the sun, so no one suspected that they were there. When Absalom's men arrived, they asked her, have you seen Ahimaaz and Jonathan? The woman replied, they were here, but they crossed over the brook. Absalom's men looked for them without success and returned to Jerusalem. Okay, so this family, this man and their wife, they put their life on the line, for their king, King David, man. They were loyal in adversity, man. Adversity is going to show true loyalty all right, and it's going to show, all right, all the falsehoods, man. Okay, adversity is a great tool, all right, to snuff out snakes and to show who's really loyal, and that's why we all have to go through the hour of temptation. The Lord is going to test our integrity, man. Okay, whether we fold or be unmovable, and Lord willing, the elect is going to be unmovable, man. Okay. It said, then the two men crawled out of the well and hurried on to King David. Quick, they told him, cross the Jordan tonight. And they told him how Ahithophel had advised that he be captured, okay, and killed. So David and all the people with him went across the Jordan River during the night, and they were all on the other bank before dawn. When Ahithophel realized that his advice had not been followed, he saddled his donkey and went to his hometown, set his affairs in order, and hanged himself. He died there and was buried in the family tomb. So he was so embarrassed, because his advice wasn't followed, that he went and hung himself, man. He got his affairs in order. So you hear Apostle Tahar, speak about someone getting their affairs in order. That's what he's speaking of. Okay. And he's speaking of, hey, you might as well hey, delete yourself, man. What he was telling Pegasus, your guy, Alazar. All right. It says verse 24, it said, David soon arrived at Mahanaim. By now, Absalom had mobilized the entire army of Israel and was leading his troops across the Jordan River. Absalom had appointed Amasa as commander of his army, replacing Joab, who had been commander under David. Amasa was Joab's cousin. Okay, his father was Jephthah, an Ishmaelite. So this was a heathen, but his mother was an Israelite that was kin to the mother of Joab. Okay, his mother Abigail, daughter of Nahash, was the sister of Joab's mother Zariah. Okay, so this was Joab's, all right, cousin, all right, because his auntie, all right, his mother's sister, had dealt with the Israelite, so it wasn't even the Israelite. Okay, it says Absalom and the Israelite army set up a camp in the land of Gilead. When David arrived at Mahanaim, he was warmly greeted by Shabbat, son of Nahash, who came from Rabbah, all right, of the Ammonites, and by Makar, son of Emiel, from Lodebar, and by Barzillai of Gilead from Ragalim. Okay, so these men, from these particular houses of substance, they came, and provided, man. It said they brought sleeping mats, cooking pots, serving bowls, wheat and barley, flour, all right, and roasted grain, beans, okay, lentils, okay, honey, butter, sheep, all right, goats, and cheese for David and those who were with him. For they said, you shall all be very hungry and tired and thirsty after your long march through the wilderness. Okay, after your long march through the wilderness, man. Okay, so now King David is being provided for. Those who are loyal, they're showing their loyalty by providing. And we're going to be provided for in the times to come. The Lord is going to have it to where we're going to be in a good case, as we have to, be pilgrims on the earth. Okay, the Lord is going to cause provisions to come in ways that we, haven't expected, and that's how we're going to know it's of the Lord. Okay, so let's go here, and we'll end it here. In 2 Ezra 2. All right, and I think 27. All right, it's the book of 2 Ezra, chapter 2, verse 27 says, be not weary, for when the day of trouble and heaviness cometh, others shall weep and be sorrowful, but thou shalt be merry and have abundance. Okay, so how the Lord is going to do it, we don't know, but he's going to do it. It's written. This is what our faith is in. So when these things are made mandated, All right, the devil, mandates his seed help and makes it seem as if you're doomed if you don't take this device. Well, we're going to fall on what the Lord says, man. All right, we're going to go through, uncomfortableness. There's going to be some stomach growlings, okay? Hey, some headaches, but then the Lord favor is gonna come through right on time, man. It's gonna be much appreciated, man, and we're gonna be joyful, man. Okay, it's just a thing of patience. All right, it says the heathen shall envy thee, but they shall be able to do nothing against thee, said the Lord. Okay, and no one can stop the Lord from providing from His people, no matter what decree. All right, that this wicked nigga Esau Edom is getting ready, to put out. Okay, so yeah, that's the point, So Lord will, all right, you brothers, and you sisters edified. Once again, want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Kakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to each other, brothers. And peace and blessing salutation to hopefully Shalom.